I'm Eric Kirk.
Hi, I'm Matthew Owen.
And this week we discuss the following topics. Can the president ignore district court rulings? We'll also discuss the dismantling of the federal government under King Musk. Will California renegotiate its relationship with the rest of the country? Good evening. You're either watching or listening to Redwood Wonk. My name is Eric Kirk, and we are with special guest Matthew Owens. We hope to have him back here. We really encourage a diversity of voices on this show and elsewhere on Access Humboldt. So we're going. He comes from a somewhat different perspective of mine, but I don't know if that will play out in tonight's topics. We'll see. But the first topic, we have three topics every night. The first topic is something I wanted to clarify as an attorney, and that is the question of whether or not President Trump, as he's apparently being advised, can simply ignore district court rulings or decisions. And in fact, his nominee for Solicitor General today, who is basically the attorney who advises the president, said that in extreme cases, even a Supreme Court decision can be ignored. Of course, when they asked him for a hypothetical, he had a hard time coming up with one, and he said Dred Scott, which of course was a horrible decision in that it maintained basically slavery against the rights of individuals, even in the non-slave states. I might discuss Dred Scott in another case, because although it was a horrible decision in terms of humanity, it was actually a sound legal decision at the time, because the Constitution had basically did not it reinforced slavery, if nothing else. But that being aside, what we're discussing today is whether or not the president can ignore court decisions, even in extreme situations. And the answer is no. No, you can't. If a case is brought, or controversy is brought to the courts, they are the arbiters of whether or not the proposed action or ongoing action is legal or not. And Elon Musk has already been complaining about it, saying, well, if any judge in the whole country can stop the president from doing something, then what's happened to democracy? Well, we don't live in a pure democracy. We live in a constitutional republic, and we have separation of powers. We have three branches of government. And the job of the judiciary is, their power is limited in that they can't do anything affirmative. They can't go out and say, you know what, we want this law to be interpreted this way. A case has to be brought to them, and then they render it. So it's a passive power, but they are under Marbury versus Madison, Supreme Court decision over 200 years old, the arbiters of what the Constitution is and interpretations of federal law. And they very often don't interfere with things that are outside of their realm, the internal workings of Congress, or even the president, unless there is something that is profoundly wrong with the action or the law. So that's the short of it. I want to get into a little bit more detail of this discussion and why it's concerning when Elon Musk says that certain judges that he doesn't like should be impeached. And to understand the context of this, there have been 23 district court decisions as of this morning, 27. And President Trump has prevailed in 4 of them. In the rest, he's got injunctions against him. The suggestion is that the court is being activist. Matthew, what are your thoughts?
I think you're wrong there, Eric. There's one branch of government right now. That's it, the executive. Congress doesn't exist, and judicial takes much, much too long to come up with anything. If you understand Trump's MO, anytime he loses a case, what's the first thing he does? He appeals it, and appeals take months, if not years. So in the meantime, what Trump's going to do is do what the executive branch said, and he's going to wait 6 months to 2 years for the Supreme Court to come to a ruling. And then, and only then, he might accept what the Supreme Court does. This is what he does all the cases. The man should have had 4 felony convictions by the time he ran for office. He had 1 because he stalled the other ones.
Yeah.
That's what he does best, more than any other person in this country.
Yeah, although
And
the
he's gonna do this.
injunctions are against him, Matthew. I mean, now the question is how do they enforce them?
Right,
But
that's the point.
yeah,
He's going to simply say, I appeal it, go to the Supreme Court, and there goes another 6 months to a year.
right.
In the meantime, he's going to do Trump law, whatever it is.
Yeah, the Supreme Court is a bit problematic for him, though, because at most they can only hear about 150 cases per year. More often, they hear maybe about 135. So they probably will probably just refuse to hear a bunch of stuff. I don't think they want to fill up their docket with all of his stuff. There are criminal cases to be heard. There are business, disputes to be heard. All kinds of cases that don't involve President Trump, and we're already at 23 decisions that he's going to try to have overturned. It'll get to the circuit court, but I don't think the Supreme Court's going to want to hear all that.
Yeah, but we've already brought up the fact that Trump wants to overturn 2 amendments to the Constitution, the 14th
Right.
and the 22nd.
Yeah.
I see congressmen trying to say at the town halls, well, President Trump got rid of birthright citizenship. You're going to tell me otherwise, Eric. You're going to say that's the United States constitutional amendment, and a president can't do it with an executive order.
And that's the one case that's made it to the circuit court, the appellate court, and it's been upheld. And I want to point out that the judges, there have been 7 rulings of judges on the birthright citizenship issue, and 4 of them were Republican appointed. One of them Trump appointed,
Right.
another one Reagan appointed, and 2 of them Bush appointed. These are not left-wing radicals ruling against them, just to point that out.
And the 22nd Amendment is the president can only serve 2 terms, not consecutive, 2 terms, period. Trump's already floating out the idea he's going to be there for life. But he's already 78 years old and not in the best of shape. So
No.
if you
No,
give
he
me
doesn't look good, actually.
if you give me a 300-pound obese man, 78 years old, who does not exercise, I'm going to say his days aren't going to be that much longer.
Yeah, but then that brings us Vance. I don't know how much better he's going to be in terms of honoring the law. It was his, the whole birthright citizenship was partly his idea, but we'll see what happens there. But right now he has to get reelected, and he's breaking some of the promises already. He's not addressing inflation. Inflation is ticking back up again, and then he gets mad at the Federal Reserve for saying we're not going to loosen this up anymore for now.
Right.
So
Trump doesn't understand one basic thing is supply and demand. The reason egg prices go up, we have this thing called bird flu. There's less birds, so they're producing less eggs. Same demand, price goes up.
yeah, and he's also angry at oil companies because they're not drilling more like he wanted them to. But the problem with that is the prices are low. They don't have an incentive to drill. They don't want to put more money on the market to even drop the prices lower. They're running businesses.
And they're making maximum profit right now at our expense.
Exactly.
So why would they bring more supply out there to lower the cost?
Yeah, no, and he can't force them to do that. I think he just assumed that that's what he was going to do. And for somebody who is supposed to be a successful businessman, he has really bad understanding of how the economy works. Certainly a free enterprise economy.
And guess who pays the highest gas prices in the nation?
Well, we do, partly because we have the treatment that so that people in Los Angeles.
California premium.
What's that?
The California premium.
Yes.
We're the only state in the entire nation that says we have to have cleaner gas. And then we have the Humboldt shipping where we have the Humboldt premium.
Oh, yeah.
And then the gas tax. Yeah.
I up here. But, we were also, I think, the only state that had smog warnings where people were advised not to leave. That was back in the 70s. We haven't had it since then.
Right.
But again, there's other issues too, because I'm told that only accounts for maybe 20 cents out of the gallon. So that doesn't account for the difference between
gas tax is 85 cents and another 20 cents to ship it up here.
Yeah. So anyway, we're a little bit off topic, but getting back to the issue of the whether or not the president is going to ignore the rulings. This actually happened once before. It was called the constitutional crisis when President Andrew Jackson, who was a populist, Trump says it's his favorite president for good reason, and the Supreme Court had ruled that that the treaties signed with the Cherokee and a few other tribes had to be upheld, and they basically laid out a ruling to state that. And Andrew Jackson glibly said, "Well, they should send over the military that they're in control of if they want me to honor that." I mean, that was a really bad moment there, and Congress was weak because they didn't want to stand up to his popularity. He was instrumental in universalizing the vote among white men at the time, which was early. But this is what happens. As far as I'm concerned, that was a coup when he did that. When he did not honor the Supreme Court decision. Well, if now this guy's talking about just ignoring all of them, or at least most of them.
Just the ones he doesn't like.
Well, which is all of them that go against his way. I mean, there are just two more today. Apparently, there's an order that they have to reinstate some people who are fired, because you can only be certain people with civil service protection can only be fired for cause. And it's not enough to have one line in an email that says your service was unacceptable or whatever it was, when in fact these people have gotten good reviews for years, right? I mean, it's just, it's so that's one of them. And it looks like they're going to have to rehire people. It looks like they're going to have to release money in USAID. At least that's what the orders are. But now they're complaining about that. They're saying, well, we can't do that in one day. It's going to take several weeks for us to be able to work, to get these things reopened. It's odd. They shut it down in one day, but they can't reopen it in one day. Why? And probably not. But so they were in the courts this morning. I don't know what happened, begging for more time to be able to start paying out money again.
And they're supposed to pay people severance.
Yeah.
They're not getting any severance. It's basically, you're fired, there's the door, goodbye.
Yeah.
Some of the people have been there 20, 30 years.
And what's kind of funny is some of the people who took his opt-out thing, which I think was totally should not have been allowed either, but where they could be paid through September for not doing any work. They just leave the job and they're paid through September. They're demanding their severance too. And the administration's like saying, well, no, that was your severance. It's like, no, no. We got retirement benefits. We got a lot of other stuff. I mean, and anyway, it's going to be interesting because, yeah, he is resisting doing this. And he didn't do this so much the first time around, but a little bit here and there. But he was, but this is bold for him to take the position that we don't have to follow district court. We only have to follow Supreme Court decisions. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that. Period. If a court makes a ruling, you follow it. Period. It's yes. It puts limitations on what you can do. We don't live in a pure democracy, nor would that be a good thing. We live in a democracy that is regulated by checks and balances, at least in theory, and we'll find it out.
Again, Eric.
What's that?
You're confused again. You think Congress should be doing their job.
No, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. I was amazed. I can't remember the congressman's name, but he did, of course, anybody can get elected, but he didn't know that spending power was with the Congress, that Congress gets to decide how the money's spent. I mean, he's in Congress. If this is your job and you don't even know your own job description, DOGE should be in there, if anything, right? How many congressmen actually understand what you're actually elected to do? It's just, it's amazing. There's not going to be any oversight, at least for the next couple of years.
Okay. And I want to bring up one fact from you just said. Have you been watching the GOP town halls recently?
No, I've watched clips from them. I saw the boos and that some of them are having a hard time, but I haven't watched them for any length of time. You want to say something about it?
Oh, if the biggest comedy right now is getting on YouTube and just type in GOP town hall and watch these guys stutter and mumble as hundreds of people are shouting them down, booing them. They're going to realize reminds me of the 2010 Tea Party, when Democratic congressmen had a hard time trying to explain the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, because the number one thing where Obama blew it, saying if you have your doctor now, you'll have your doctor with Obamacare. And a lot of physicians just said, I'm not going to take this. Sorry, bye. So they didn't go out and do the vetting first, and people were angry. And then, of course, when you have a propaganda machine behind you, drilling it into your head every single day, Obamacare's bad, Obamacare's bad, they showed up at town halls and flipped Congress, which I'm hoping is going to happen now in 2026. Let's see what happens from there. But these Republicans are right. These are their constituents who are out there screaming at them, and for good reason.
I think Obama and the Democrats made the mistake of assuming just because the Obamacare originally began with a conservative think tank called the Heritage Foundation, which is, curiously enough, also behind Project 2025, but it came out and Mitt Romney, as governor of Massachusetts, implemented it there.
Right.
But what they wanted was to have it, but not have insurance companies be forced to take people and not bar them because of pre-existing conditions.
Right. That was right. Number one thing.
In addition, so it's just, but you're right. The town hall, the town halls. I remember the one here. There was one at I think it was at the Acres in just outside Eureka, but I don't remember exactly. But it was in a big hall, and yeah, there was cantankerous yelling. It wasn't as bad as some other areas of the country, but it was interesting. And and then when people yelled back at them, it just made it even more chaotic. But I'm not seeing a lot of pushback from the crowds in these. I mean, they're yeah. So, but I think a lot of people just don't understand the Constitution. But well, we're going to have to move on. We'll be discussing this topic later, though, because there probably will come a time when the president actually does ignore a judicial decision. So we have an unelected person who some people are saying is president, if not king, King Musk. Elon Musk is, of course, one of the richest people in the world, and he glommed himself onto the Trump campaign in the last months, promising that he's going to restructure government. And with the the Department of Government Efficiency,
correct? Doge.
That's what he's calling it. He is literally hacked into accounts and gotten into all kinds of private information. And he is acting like he's the president. He's acting like he's the one in charge. He's firing people. Apparently, he's making stuff up too, because he's made big claims as to how much money DOG was going to be saving, and then they just quietly took it off after it was debunked by a bunch of economists. But this last weekend. But this isn't even the point, right? Everybody wants more efficient government. What is he doing to make it more efficient? All he's doing is creating chaos right now. He issued an email saying that every federal employee who received that email should write a letter justifying their jobs with 5 examples of things they did last week. Now, even some of the departments under Trump are pushing back and saying, no, you don't have to do that. In fact, don't respond to it.
How do you read 2.3 emails? You don't. So he's going to have AI read them, look for certain buzzwords, and if you put in the wrong buzzword, you're out. You put in the right buzzword, you're still employed. It's insane.
It is. And, this isn't his job. This isn't something that he's empowered to do. Now, he has not been, apparently he's like the most powerful person in government, maybe even more powerful than Trump already. Yes. Trump is backing him up when Steve Bannon was objecting to the immigration program involving techies from India. Yes, right. The Trump sided. He said, no, Bannon. Musk he's the man. but he hasn't been vetted. He hasn't been gone through any Senate confirmation hearing. He doesn't have an official position. In court, they're actually arguing that some woman is in charge of DOGE, and I don't think she's been in Washington, D.C. for the past. She just got back from a vacation in Mexico. And nobody's heard of her, right? But supposedly she's the one in charge of this non-existent department. It's not a department. It hasn't been gone through the official process, and yet they are at work. I mean, they
And the
are.
employees he's hiring have not been vetted.
Yeah, right.
So,
Yeah,
at 19 years
ironically,
old,
21 of them who had been vetted have quit in protest. But Matthew, what do you have to say?
well, a couple things here. For all the Republicans who are complaining about all these stupid things that they funded, who was the one who approved these bills to get them funded? That was the Republican senators and congressmen. Somehow they're forgetting, oh, yeah, I voted to approve this. And now they're looking through it in detail saying, we're doing DEI in India. Okay, maybe that's stupid. Maybe we shouldn't be paying for it. I get that. The crazy thing here is Governor Mike DeWine said, you got to find the money somehow. And it's a simple, easy answer. Anyone who runs a business, you have what's called income and you have what's called expenses. What Musk is doing is slashing expenses. I'm bringing up a simple point. Why don't we just raise the income? In other words, why don't we make billionaires and corporations pay their fair share? We can cure this whole thing of the deficit overnight. But the Republicans are going to push back on that because Tesla just made $2.4 billion in profit in 2024. Care to venture how much they paid in federal income tax? Zero.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but the average American out there is paying anywhere from 20%, and I'm typically paying out about 40% a year in federal, state, Social Security, Medi-Cal, and disability income. So 40% of my income goes away. Musk, as a person, I will bet pays zero, and we already know Trump pays $0 to $750, not $750,000, $750. I keep telling my accountant every year, I want the Trump tax bill, $750. That's the maximum I'm going to pay. And he just laughs at me. Doesn't work for you and I.
No, it doesn't. And, there are reasons that, sometimes the processes of government are really inefficient and slow. And sometimes there's reasons for that. I mean, we don't want to, okay, it's great if the trains run all the time, but that, that's not necessarily, that's also a myth. The trains didn't run any better or worse under Mussolini than before, but that's, there was the impression that he did. And but it's not all about efficiency. It's not about one maverick person leading the charge against a bureaucracy. That's in all the movies and everything. But in reality, these processes are there for a reason. And not only did these senators and House members approve the funding for these, but they're on the oversight committees that are supposed to have been watching this, the whole time. And the problem is that what DOGE is taking is a sledgehammer approach where there should be scissors. So it should be a surgical approach. They should be going in and looking, not just canceling everything, saying, okay, we're going to figure out what we're going to continue to fund later. You go in one by one and you make those changes, assuming you are a body that was approved by the Senate and are working in cooperation with the actual oversight committees that are part of the Congress's constitutional job. But DOGE isn't even an official thing, so it's not like they can have any control over that, or even if they wanted to, or maybe they could, but there isn't the political will right now.
And here's the other problem. A lot of Republicans who voted for Trump didn't realize what they were getting. Farmers right now, if you've heard the stories, took out loans from banks to do improvements to their farms. One person that had to diversify, a bad word, he put in a different type of crop. That's diversifying in farming. But as soon as Trump saw it, he didn't like that. But with the expectation they're going to get grants to pay off these loans. Well, the loans are coming due right now. And guess what's happened to the grants? They've been frozen. So there's farmers all across the Midwest who are literally freaking out right now because the bank's going to say, I don't care if you didn't get your grant. We want our money. So are you going to have to sell off part of your land or sell off part of your crop or sell off part of your herd? And these farmers are literally freaking out saying, what do we do? And they're going to the congressmen and senators who are really slow in returning phone calls saying, you got to tell this guy he's got to release this stuff. This is insane. He's hurting his own constituency. The second thing is that with the tariffs he's doing, Many American producers are finding out Canada doesn't want our products anymore. Mexico is
Right.
not buying our products. Over in Europe, England has stopped buying our products. They just say, we don't want anything to do with the Americans. We're done with them. They're more worried about what Russia's doing over there in Ukraine, which is going to be another subject I understand for a different week. But these are trading partners around the world who are now saying, I'm done with America. That's not a good thing if you're someone who's exporting your product.
When you're threatening tariffs, 25% tariffs, and all of a sudden Canada's feeling vulnerable, what are they going to do? They're going to make themselves not vulnerable. They're going to start opening up trade discussions with other countries. And it doesn't matter if we don't impose the tariffs right now. We've threatened it. They don't want to be in that position again.
Right. Look at it this way. In Europe, Tesla sales have dropped 45%. That was in 2024. So 2025, or they're probably going to drop even more. You know who's going to get upset about that? King Musk. People are going to stop buying this product, just saying, I'm done with you.
Although part of that's due to the fact that there's a lot more competition now than there was. He used to have 90% of the market in California. He now has 52%. And I don't think that's all due to politics, maybe a little of it, but other companies are coming up with some very competitive products. But he's going to get that grant, maybe. I don't know what's happening with that, but we'll have to, talk about that. But yeah, I mean, it's but it's incredible that we're talking about this. That they held that crazy press conference last week with
Musk and his kid.
Yeah, I mean that was insane.
You know who looked weak during that press conference? The guy sitting at his table doing this, while the man standing above him with a T-shirt. You do not wear a T-shirt in the Oval Office. That's not allowed. Suit and tie only. Well, but Musk is different. He can do whatever he wants.
Rules don't apply to today's royalty. I mean,
rules don't apply to the billionaires.
Right. It's just, and four of the richest billionaires were sitting at his inauguration right behind him. I mean, one of the things that this has been, that some people have characterized the election is, it was corporate America versus oligarchs America, and the oligarchs won this time around.
Yep.
I mean, it's just no. It is we do need to think about this and what do people do? What do we do at the moment? Now, showing up to the town hall meetings is something else because that I understand that Republican representatives feel caught in between a rock and a hard place. But it's not just the Republicans. Jeffries is getting pressure too, and he's out there whining publicly. Well, don't call us, call the Republicans. And people are calling the same. Republicans don't care about our calls. You need to do something. It's not like they can do anything. It's just that they probably ought to be a little bit more vocal about their opposition. Few of them are. But
you made a good point here in Humboldt County. We can call our local congressman, but he's a Democrat.
Yeah.
He's in the minority in D.C. You can call Representative Jared Huffman, like the guy a lot, good congressman, but what's he going to do? They're in the minority in the Congress.
At least he looks like he's fighting. I mean, he's not holding back his opinions. He's not trying, talking about appeasement or anything like that. He does understand his constituency.
I haven't heard a word from Adam Schiff or Senator Padilla. Not a word from either one of them.
No, they're quiet, and that surprises me with Schiff because they were on the forefront last time around, against Trump. But why are they so quiet about this? It's hard, and if you don't rail against Trump, at least rail against Musk. I mean, that's just so ludicrous,
James Carville, the Democratic strategist, has a different theory. He just says, sit back and relax and let these people blow up the government. And the people are going to step forward and say, I'm done. I am done with you guys. We tried you. It did not work out. Let's see what happens.
I hope that's the case. I mean, there's a lot other local problems we have here. Forest Service, I think like 23 employees were laid off. People were doing fire suppression work down by Shelter Cove, had to stop because the funding got caught. The guy in charge said, hey, we're literally raking the forest, like you said. I mean, it's just and this is the time of year when a lot of that work needs to be done. I mean, is it going to be funding going to be restored in the middle of the fire season? I mean, what is the plan for that? I mean, that's dangerous.
Have you ever been in a national park?
Which one? I've been to
a lot of them, but the one thing that we notice when we go there is We like to see the garbage cans emptied and not overflowing, because when they're overflowing, you just gotta let them go. And you like to see the bathrooms open and not closed.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen when they fire all these people who work for the national parks? The garbage cans are going to be overfilling and the bathroom is going to be closed and people are going to get angry. The garbage.
I mean, they're talking about stopping Alcatraz tours for a while. That brings money. That's one of the things that brings money to the government. It's like in the top 10 tourist destinations in the world. And it's
Grand Canyon, they're already saying it's double the time length to drive your car into the canyon right now. Double. Because they don't have enough staff to get the cars through. So
yeah, no, it's really a sad thing. These have, actions have consequences, and I mean, it's sort of like coming along. And I've already used the sledgehammer example, but it's kind of like being a doctor and going and saying, well, we don't need this organ. What's a spleen? Who cares? I mean, it's just it's a minor thing. You can't you have there are ramifications for everything you do. And so you have to be careful about it. I mean, I'd be all for it actually if he could go in and streamline it so that the government does more with less. That's great, but I don't see that happening with this process.
I don't think most Americans do either. One other thing I wanted to bring up was Elon Musk went after the CFPB, Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. I think he did that mainly at Wall Street and the big banks prodding, because they're the ones who pay for Congress. They didn't like the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau because they came down like a hammer on them when they screwed Americans.
Yeah.
Well, guess what happens when you take a watchdog away from Wall Street? They're going to do stupid things again and screw Americans over, because that's what Wall Street does. Now, where they made a big mistake is U.S. aid. We did what's called soft power. We gave other countries food. It's a lot easier to make allies giving them food than going in with your military and giving them bullets. So soft power was a huge thing for our country. And by the way, China and Russia are doing the same thing. It's a lot easier with food than military.
And we might be ceding Africa and other areas of the world to them right now if we're pulling back that aid. I mean, it was all started in the 60s with the Kennedy, the Alliance for Progress, Peace Corps, and it was bipartisan. Everybody supported it. And, Rubio himself just within a couple of years ago said, this is great. It's having a great impact. But he's in a different position.
Europe and Taiwan are a little worried right now?
I would imagine so. Not, I mean, not to mention Ukraine, of course, but again, we'll have to talk about that another time. But yes, it was a way to have influence. The money was targeted. There was a policy behind it, and you just stop it outright. I mean, the consequences again can be dire. And not only that, people were stopped and aren't having medical coverage. Woman, had some issues with it. I mean, it has consequences, and he's not looking like he's taking any, like responsibility for it or even planning for it. I mean, the thing about private companies, and this is why businessmen are used to it. Private companies are dictatorships for good reason, and so they can be efficient. But all they have to do is produce goods and services. Government has a lot more considerations, but we're at the end of our time.
And I think the problem there is you just hit the nail on the head is King Musk is trying to run the U.S. government like he does a corporation.
Yeah.
And the government's not a corporation. We're not into it for the profit model.
You ready, Matthew?
Yeah, you gonna go do the Cal Brexit?
Yeah. All right, coming back to California, we always try to have at least one topic that's not directly related to Trump. Unfortunately, it is kind of related to Trump, but we want to talk about a political movement in California, and there's a couple of different variations of it. There is right now a petition being circulated to put on to the ballot a non-binding measure to have California's leaders push for absolute separation from the United States. They point out that depending on what measure you use, California is either standing by itself as either the fourth or fifth largest economy in the world. I mean, we certainly could be a nation where larger than just about any other country in terms of economic power and everything else. We put out a lot more in taxes, that we pay a lot more in taxes than we receive. We actually do subsidize the red states. That's something a lot of people don't understand, all these programs. And we are the breadbasket. I think we account for something like a fifth, if not more, of the food across the country, partly because a lot of the corn goes to the fuel, but it's but we have this incredible diversity. We're at the Pacific Rim. Even when our economy is bad, it's good because of all of these advantages that we have, and we seem to attract thinkers and dreamers from everywhere. They, when it came when what's his name? The poet was talking about riding across the country in motorcycles. His trip, he got there. He says, "We've reached the end. There ain't no more land, and this is, where history is made." I mean, he was pretty much right. I'm getting old, and I'm.
Bukowski?
What's that?
Bukowski?
No, but a beat poet, the one who crossed. It's really bad that I'm not remembering it. But anyway, I just read his book about 6 months ago. One of them. Anyway, the point is, California is a very special place, and we are attacked by good portions of the rest of the country. The left coast, we're called the latte liberals. And the whole idea of separation was actually explored in Ernest Calabach's Ecotopia back in the 1970s. That was Northern California, Oregon, and Washington separating and becoming its own nation. So there's a lot of that dreaming around, but there's also, and we have this proposition that probably, even if it was to pass, wouldn't lead to anything. But we also have something called the California National Party. And they don't advocate actually leaving the Union. They recognize that, hey, they tried that during the Civil War, it didn't work out. But they do advocate a kind of administrative independence where we keep our own tax money, where we have our own regulations, a true return to true federalism, consistent with the Articles of the Confederation rather than the Constitution. So it's an interesting idea, and it's getting a lot of discussion right now because California feels like it's resistance central. At least a lot of people, even conservatives here, are different from conservatives in other states, except maybe in Shasta County. But actually they're different in a different way. But anyway, it's not. I won't say that I think it's a viable political movement. I interviewed on Cape Mud last week the chair of the California National Party, very smart guy, and I encourage people to go there and listen to it. He has some very interesting thoughts, but we know that it's only going to go so far. But the fact that this is happening, and it's not like we're the only state with secessionist movement, by the way. Texas, Alaska, New England, we don't want to break up. There's a bunch of them there. Everybody has different reasons, of course. Matthew, what do you think of this?
I think it's going to come to a head when President Trump tells California Governor Gavin Newsom, we need your California National Guard troops down along the border. There's too many illegal immigrants coming in. And Gavin Newsom says, no, it's my National Guard. I'll do what I want with them. We'll find out what happens at that point.
We will. That might not. The immigration across the border was down even with Biden when he, I think, actually illegally revoked certain asylum laws, and it's down to a minimum now. Although I caution people because what it means is people aren't crossing the border and turning themselves in because it doesn't provide them any advantage. There could be clandestine immigration everywhere, but right now it's not a friendly place for immigrants, especially undocumented immigrants. So, who knows what he would say if it was needed. I think Gavin Newsom probably wouldn't want to do that because right now he's trying to get aid, and might be kind of hypocritical if we're demanding emergency aid from outside and
Right.
then not providing it elsewhere. But again, militarization of the border isn't going to do any good. So that would blow it up. I mean, he wants to stop the drugs from coming through, and the fact is most drugs are actually sent through the checkpoints, and a
I
lot
got
of
a
them
better
are.
idea for you, Eric. Instead of stopping the drugs, why don't we stop the drug users? The demand is
Right. Yeah.
driving the supply. We have 1 out of 5 Americans wants to put something up their nose or in their veins. That's a problem. Adult Americans.
Sure.
That's a
No.
huge problem.
And we could probably improve that somewhat with more investment in treatment and facilities and the like. I mean, for people who want to get cleaned up, there is a lot of that. But also fentanyl, like I said, it's brought through by people, usually American tourists, more often than not. Americans going down there because we don't check for them. We're going to militarize the base and they're going to walk right through. The thing, but the point is California is a bit different. It's even different from Oregon and Washington. We've got unique cultures here. We're the origins of the hippie culture. I mean, not really, but we kind of. And Right on Red, came from California. It's originally a California idea. I mean, a lot of innovation comes from here. But why are we seeing this now? Is it all Trump, or are there other reasons why we're seeing so many people interested in this?
Uh, I, Here's my opinion. There's been a difference in America. That I believe we have two Americans or two Americas that we live in now, the red state and the blue states. But this Trump wasn't the person who brought this on. I'm going to go back to Sarah Palin in 2008. She had an undercurrent of there's angry Americans out there, and there's millions of them, and they're angry. So she just tapped into that, and Trump was a master at tapping into their anger and blaming somebody else. Look, this person wants to use your tax dollars to get undocumented prisoners to have sex changes. I actually heard commercials in Nevada. I went out to campaign for Kamala, and I heard those commercials in Nevada every 5 minutes. I was playing it. That one commercial especially. Now, did that actually happen to one prisoner out of hundreds of thousands?
No,
Maybe.
it was a box she checked on a questionnaire because it was standard treatment. Probably should have thought that through a little more, but those are the things that happen.
But is California going to leave the U.S.? No. I'm just curious. I think what we need is a blue resistance right now, a huge blue resistance out there. But the problem we have in California is have a Democratic governor, 2 Democratic U.S. senators. Most of the California congressmen are blue versus red. How are we going to make a difference?
Yeah, I don't know. And then there's also some counties, as you know, that want to separate from California, the Jefferson, so
Right.
it's but no, I hear you. One of the things California is doing, as well as a few other blue states, as we call them, and I want to be real, cautious about the overuse of blue states and red states. It was just basically commentators on television late at night during the Gore-Bush election who was looking up on their map, and they just happened to have their blue states that Gore won were winning, and red states. And so from that discussion, because one of the commentators, I don't remember who, said, well, we've got the blue state there, blah blah blah, and the red state, it just took and kept, and so
Right.
ever since then. But it's it's kind of like left and right wing, right? I mean, it was all based on a parliamentary situation where it's just in one think it was French, time the socialists were sitting in the left wing of the seats, the conservatives in the right, and the liberals in the middle, and all of a sudden that defined politics from thereafter because we talked about the left wing. So I always want to be cautious of that because really every state is to a certain degree purple, different shades of it. There are you can find plenty of radical hippies in the most conservative state. Probably find even more in Wyoming than you would find in some other states, right? But it's so we have that. But one thing that is happening politically is we are setting up funds to help women who are in states where abortion has all but been banned can come and get what they need, and to even set up defense funds for them if they're going to be tried in absentia or when they return. It's interesting. And so in the meantime, I think Texas passed a law saying that they could prosecute people in our state for doing that. Well, that's going to be interesting, constitutional.
Good luck, Texas.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
but the politics are intensifying. We have not had a divide like this at least since the '60s, and arguably not since the Civil War. And that's a scary thought.
so I'm going to give you one other idea here, Eric. There's 58 counties in California. Majority of them voted for Trump because
Yeah,
they're rural counties. But where the big population centers are is in the blue cities, the major urban cities. And that's the divide in America right now is the urbans versus the rural people.
yeah.
Then you throw in social economic status with income, it becomes a whole different ballgame of whether you're voting on the blue team or the red team.
Of course, Humboldt County just has to be different, right? We're a rural county that maybe leans blue more. But we're a university town. We got a lot of reason, the back to land
Right.
movement, a lot of special things. But you're right,
Crescent City, Del Norte County is a red county.
very red, very red. Although they did vote down the Jefferson County proposal, but they still want to be in California. But
In the words of our county supervisor, Rex Bone, a bunch of broke ass counties want to start a new broke ass state.
yeah, yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, I know. It's anyway, but I think it goes to the angst of the situation right now that people are talking about leaving the union in states. I don't think they're the majority in any state, but in Texas, it's there. I mean, Sarah Palin even made sort of pandered to them, the Alaska secessionists, and we're talking about a state that it takes about what a third of the lower 48 states, and it has a population less than that of San Francisco.
Right.
It's so it's interesting that you have that there, but it's but we're seeing this more. We're seeing a lot of people who, on one side or the other, don't want to be part of the country right now. And Go
I'm
ahead.
going to give you my biggest concern for California is the exodus, people leaving mainly due to real estate prices, congestion. And if you go down the Bay Area or LA, the freeways there are just, oh my God. There's too many people living there, which just drives up prices and drives up rents. And now when you have wildfires that wipes out certain communities, guess what's going to happen to the rents and real estate prices? It's
Yeah.
going to go up.
Although there are people who said we never should have built a major city in the middle of a desert anyway, on a desert anyway. But that's
That's been sailed.
that bridge is long under the water. Our water's under the bridge. So,
Maybe not built a city on an earthquake fault.
yeah, right. I mean, well, we've put power plants on there,
Right.
but I mean, I know people who have advocated nuclear power when I was a kid, saying, but that was stupid to build it right on the Apple Canyon there. So it was just anyway. Yeah, we do make some interesting decisions here. I mean, part of the reason the Bay Area is so expensive is the tech industry. It's when Google moved in, all of a sudden they're moving in. They don't mind moving into poor neighborhoods, and all of a sudden it's $5,000 a month rent, average, and I think it's probably higher than that now. I mean, they keep threatening to go, right? What's his name is threatening to take Facebook out of San Francisco. I mean, go, just do it. Do it, because maybe rents will be I mean, San Francisco has always been expensive, right? Because it's where everybody and their grandma want to live. I'm reading a book of a collection of Herb King columns from 1951 to 1952, and he was complaining about how expensive it was back then. It's just, when you got a beautiful city like that, people are going to want to live there. It's just the way it is. But is does it have to be so ridiculous at this point? And you're right, more people, okay, you build more houses, but that's more traffic. What do you do about the traffic? I mean, what do you do about the infrastructure? It is a problem, and I don't know that that's going to be solved anytime soon. And on top of it, we've got the worst homeless problem because we have the best weather, so everybody comes here.
Right.
It's just a situation where, but maybe if we were our own nation, we could focus and address these things. If we could keep the resources here and not be paying taxes to subsidize Arkansas, I don't know. I just, but I understand why people are pushing it. It's, I just, I don't know that it's a good strategy or anything. Might send a message somewhere if a lot of people sign that petition. But
And that,
any
the other
other
problem
thoughts
is,
on this?
yeah, if I'm going to be the highest tax state, California state income tax goes up to 13.3%, the highest in the nation. Humboldt County has the highest per capita homeless in the entire country.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be paying high taxes, I want to get something for that. I don't want to have to deal with the dregs of society. That's what we get living here.
Well, of course, it's everywhere, and we've got that situation, and the
I
question is, what do we
understand.
do about that? I
Right.
mean, and we'll have to take it on homelessness another time because we're at the end of our time, but that might be a good policy. What would be good homeless policy on a national level?
I've
Uh,
got the answer for that, and we'll get back to that next time we talk about homeless.
all right.
I'm sorry, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Do you have an idea for a prediction?
Oh yeah, I can guarantee a prediction.
Okay.
Chaos.
All right. Well, that brings us to predictions. Matthew, do you have a prediction for us?
Yeah, I'm going to say two things. California is not going to leave the nation. I don't think Abraham Lincoln would allow that. And then two, expect chaos from Trump and Musk. Whatever they do, they're going to fire a whole bunch of more people. They're going to ignore court rulings. They're not going to talk about increasing taxes, though. The one thing that would cure this whole problem the Republicans are freaked out about, the deficit. Increase taxes, deficit goes away. They won't do that.
And maybe at least just restore the taxes that were there 10 years ago. But all right. Well, my prediction is looking at the birthright citizenship issue, it has already reached the circuit court. I think it is such a flagrant issue that the Supreme Court majority is not going to want to hear it. They're just not even going to hear it.
Right.
The way I see the breakdown is there's three liberals, there's two conservatives, Roberts and Coney Barrett, and then the rest are MAGA. So sometimes the two conservatives go one way or another, and I think they are not going to want so many of his cases on their docket. And this one is so ridiculous, they're just going to say, leave it for the lower courts to have decided it. We'll find out if our predictions come true, but until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.
Thank you.